I wonder if what we talked about last week, though, and what continues to be the case, again, like I said, it feels like every week, is Michigan's confidence in Bryce Underwood, who is clearly the number one QB target if Boley is indeed going to Kentucky. Does that make things a little bit easier for them and how they've handled this Boley conversation? Would they have maybe pushed harder to like get him to not reclassify or even consider it? Or are they kind of like, hey, now that we were going for Boley because we didn't think we were going to get Underwood, now we feel better about Underwood. Like, is that playing into it at all? Like, where are they? We're resetting the 25 board, assuming Boley is going to Kentucky.
Yeah.
Is that part of it with Underwood?
I mean, it could. I think they've had to reset the quarterback board in 25 multiple times. I think, just putting Underwood back into the conversation kind of reset things. Because really you had Cutter Boley, Ryan Montgomery. I got it right this time. Ryan Montgomery, and now you loosely had Bryce Underwood in there, and now fast forward a couple of months later, things have shuffled around a little bit, and now you had, looks like Bryce Underwood number 1, Cutter Boley 2A, and then Ryan Montgomery 2B. So now you have to shuffle it again and say, okay, Bryce Underwood's still 1. And now where does everyone else fall underneath that? Obviously, like a guy like Ryan Montgomery is going to be number 2. I don't think Michigan is exactly settling if for some reason Bryce Underwood goes elsewhere. My dog agrees that you're not settling for a guy like Montgomery. I think he's a very good quarterback in his own right. And I think that's what has Michigan in a really good spot right now, is that they're in a position, not just at the quarterback, where multiple positions, if they miss on a guy, their next option is not a guy that they're quote unquote settling for, it's a guy that, is there in his own right. So that just speaks to kind of the hot streak that they've been on. So, to go back to the whole Underwood thing, I think all of those guys kind of live in their own little revolving world. I don't think anything really meshes. I mean, the only time I think really worlds collided was this whole Cutter Boley thing. Whether he was gonna reclassify and whether Michigan was interested in, even pursuing the thought of having 2 quarterbacks or whatever. I think really that's the only time you can have these worlds colliding. And I think all of these are separate to one another. Whatever happens, I mean, obviously that's it for quarterback recruiting. If they get a guy, I don't think, I'll be curious to see whether they actually want to hold out for a guy like Underwood. If a guy like Montgomery wants to commit, and I'm not saying he's close or he even wants to commit to Michigan, but more like a hypothetical. But yeah, I think all of this is separate of its own, and I don't think really one has to do with the other. But now, I mean, when looking at once Boley's off the board, Underwood's your clear cut number 1 guy. I mean, there's no question about it, and it should be that way. So I think, with Boley out of the picture, I just think things kind of the image sharpens a little bit and things become a little more clear as to where it's going to go.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about, those 3 in particular, I think was the initial wave of Underwood, Boley, and then Montgomery, right? And it's kind of funny as everything's starting to settle down. It feels like all 3 are probably more likely to stay home than we ever thought, a year ago or whatever, right? So instead of, we thought it'd be really funny, they could all rotate where, Boley ends up at Michigan and Underwood's at Ohio State, whatever. Well, we'll still have to see, like you said, but Michigan's in on them. George McIntyre was another name we mentioned before. Stone Saunders is a high 4-star, maybe like a Cade McNamara type recruit. That's very vague description. I'm not trying, but like Antoine says, Michigan's system doesn't need that high caliber QB, but you like to have it.
Yeah.
Right. And you've opened this door now with the success you've had and with JJ McCarthy. and getting Davis to commit. If McCarthy ends up being a first-round pick or a high NFL pick, something Michigan hasn't had in a very long time, you've built some momentum at QB recruiting that you can keep going for a while. And you just, as long as you can keep that going and you've got a guy like Underwood literally in your backyard, the goal is to get him, obviously, right?